Hello and welcome to the Lens at 177, and today we continue discussion with another political candidate in the upcoming general election as we gear up towards December 14th. And today we are talking to candidate number 341, Parmesh Chand from the People's Alliance Party. Before I start and welcome you, Parmesh, our viewers would want to know, Parmesh was a former permanent secretary in the Prime Minister's office, and prior to that he had worked under the Lesina Garase government as a CEO in the Public Enterprises Ministry. And the PM I've spoken about is none other than the current Prime Minister, Frank Bainimarama. To start off, Parmesh, welcome to the program. First question, why have you decided to join politics?
Thank you, Anish, and thank you for featuring me on this program. Yes, politics is a new thing for me. I have decided to join politics as a personal choice, obviously, but largely driven by a number of factors. And I would quote three in particular. It is driven by the voices of people. The voices of the people are at the moment crying for better leadership. In fact, they are weeping for better leadership, and they are looking for credible people to be part of a new team. Secondly, I can see there is a momentum for change, and I want to be part of that momentum which will lead to a change. And finally, I looked at the people in my team, or in our team in People's Alliance Party, and I saw depth of experience in there, depth of diversity, and depth of diverse backgrounds of people. So I got moved by that, because here's a team which is by far best qualified in terms of diversity and qualifications and experience, and it can run government any day. Me having worked in government for a number of years, and in particular at permanent secretary level for 12 years, I see the team which is in People's Alliance Party being able to deliver the goods they are promising.
You now reside in Ba, rural Ba, I understand. Ba is a melting pot of voters. 2018, I think Fiji first dominated in the area you live, that's in Ba. So what's the message on the ground you're getting at campaigns?
Yes, thank you. I largely live in Nandi. I have got bulk of my operations in Ba by way of farming and business. So I am as much in Nandi as in Ba, and both obviously have the similar demographics and economy, both Ba and Nandi. But having said that, the on-ground sentiments politically, obviously, we see voices saying that the government which has been around, and we have largely been governed for the last 16 years, virtually by the same people, and in particular two people. That is a very significant factor in people's minds. Secondly, within that party there is ministers and backbenchers you never hear, apart from them shouting for these or accompanying these two people and their voices in Parliament. So obviously there is a silent group behind them. They were elected to come and represent the voices of people, and we never hear them talking objectively in Parliament. So really, I think people are telling us, really, there's only two people running government, nobody else is there. And secondly, people are also saying that their voices on ground are not heard. Their voices are not heard. The mechanisms which allowed their voices to be heard have not been restored. Obviously, a number of those mechanisms were as part of the transition in 2006 or December 2006, but they were to be reinstated following election of a constitutional government. And this government has backtracked on a number of those promises. I can name them, but people are clever enough, they know it themselves, and they have been voicing their concerns. People also feel not empowered. They feel they are being watched. They feel that they are being monitored. Therefore, that creates an atmosphere of fear. And when we go out campaigning, people do tell us that, look, we'll support you, but maybe we will not come to open meetings. So that's a kind of fear which has been created, because there are as many people watching them as many people coming. We have seen increasing poverty at rural level due to effects of climate change, effects of COVID, declining sugar industry. They have all compounded to the woes of people in terms of their daily struggles. We have also seen rising cost of living. People in rural areas find it very difficult to survive on buying imported goods, which have escalated astronomically in prices. And there are deteriorating conditions of infrastructure. In fact, many of the roads in rural areas have gone narrower because they are not maintained in terms of edges and drainage. They are not properly looked after. It's not that every road needs to be tar sealed, but they need to be properly graded and properly looked after. And there is deteriorating health conditions, particularly in health centers, and people wait for hours to get services. And there's frequent water cuts, frequent blackouts by way of electricity outages. So there's all these problems we see being compounded every day.
So what's or how are the campaigns currently being conducted in a rural area where you are? What are you seeing? Are the people coming forward and clearly saying that, or are they clearly critical of the current government?
Yes, indeed. That's part of it. Obviously, they have seen what they have seen in the last 16 years, 8 years of this government being an elected government, and 8 years of them largely being in power prior to that. They are coming out saying that, look, our situations are not improving. We are largely being told, and what we hear in the news is largely controlled. The actual on-ground situation is quite different. The people are struggling every day to put food on the table.
Did it ever cross your mind that when your name would be announced as a candidate for People's Alliance Party, that it may upset your former boss, the current Prime Minister?
I worked in Prime Minister's office back in 2007 to 2009 and part of 2010. That's a long way away, and things have changed drastically since then. I'm free to pursue my own interests, and in this instance it is political interest. And people transit from roles to roles, so I'm sure he understands as he ought to, and I don't have any malice against the Prime Minister, and I'm sure he doesn't have any malice against me.
You're a very soft-spoken person, but you are on TikTok now, on social media. Why go towards that platform to campaign?
Yeah. Indeed, as I mentioned earlier, the campaigns largely these days are not as free as what we used to. There's so many restrictions in place, and we have to abide by the rules because we are aspiring to become parliamentarians. We can't be seen to be breaking any rules. So the only way now is to also complement whatever we can do on ground and reach out through social media, be it Facebook, be it Instagram, be it TikTok, and I think they are getting the messages across.
Parmesh, thank you very much for your comments in this segment. We will take a short break, and after the break we will continue the discussion. Welcome back, and today we are talking to Parmesh Chand from the People's Alliance Party. Parmesh, we've discussed earlier, you've worked with the current Prime Minister, Frank Bainimarama. You were his permanent secretary in the Prime Minister's office. Just a personal assessment of him as a leader from then and now.
Thank you, Anish. I obviously worked as his permanent secretary, and prior to that I was a permanent secretary in government under the previous government of Mr. Garase. Once you reach the permanent secretary position, and once you are in the seat of a permanent secretary in the office of Prime Minister, that's quite a achieved role. And having done that and having served the Prime Minister, obviously you are guided by public service ethics and code of conduct. And being a civil servant, although I'm retired, I still carry those ethics and code of conduct because I'll always remain a former public servant who served various masters loyally and credibly. And our relationship was obviously of a master and a public servant who loyally provided services to the highest office on the land. And I enjoyed that role, and I likewise received reciprocity from him, acknowledgement on the work I did. And I'm very glad that I had that opportunity, and I'll carry that all my life because it was a privileged role, and I carry certain privileged information by virtue of having been in that office. And I would leave it to that because I still enjoy a cordial relationship with the Prime Minister, although I'm in opposition. And come whatever it may, Fiji is a small place. The options need to remain open for anybody and everybody.
So you've worked with him, and now you are with Mr. Siti Vinirambuka. If I were to ask you, was it difficult to make that 360-degree turn from one Prime Minister who is now critical of a leader you follow?
Well, let me explain. Really, the role of a public servant, be it a permanent secretary or a junior officer, is quite distinct from politics. I was a public servant, and a public servant remains impartial and apolitical in terms of discharging his or her functions. So I never saw myself as affiliated to a party. In that instance, Fiji First Party. I delivered my obligations and roles and responsibilities as a permanent secretary and as a public servant. So there's no switch as such in terms of what I believe in, but obviously I'm now politically aligned to a party, but I'm no longer in government. I'm a retired public servant.
In your time as PS, did you have any fallout with anybody on a major issue while in that position? I know you've talked about ethics and you might not want to discuss it, but is there something that stands out that needs to be highlighted now?
Yeah, I would answer it in the sense that permanent secretary positions are positions of very high responsibility. And you are supposed to discharge your functions impartially and obviously with all due diligence to hand. I did have fallouts with fellow permanent secretaries, with ministers, with my master being the Prime Minister in certain instances, but obviously they were in the course of duty. They were not personally driven from either side, and our role was to provide the best of advice, be it taken or not. It's really up to the masters. So if we consider that as a fallout, or if we didn't like it, you just have to put it aside and move on, because that's what your role is. It's not that your advice will be accepted all the time. It may be accepted sometimes or most times, but you can't be there 100% all the time. So I took it in that stride. I'm a man of principle, and I believe in fairness and believe in compassion. And if there were fallouts and if people still feel aggrieved, I would like to seek forgiveness and compassion for that, because really we are all for Fiji.
Okay. Were you directed to carry out an order, or you were directed to do something which you regret today?
Well, the instructions get given to you based on political imperatives and policy of the day. Some of it may be outside of your what you believe in, but the picture overall is the interest of the public service and the interest of Fiji at large. So you just discharge your role loyally and credibly as much as you can, because really you are there as a symbol of carrying the highest level of ethics and behaving within the code of conduct set for public servants.
You were PS at the time when the salaries of PS went up to 150,000 plus. Do you think that amount is okay today? Yeah.
That salary obviously got commissioned based on a review done by an external, or rather a local accounting firm. It studied the civil service salary in relation to what similar positions were going for in the market. But I must say that it got implemented a bit in isolation, because it got implemented following abolishment of the Higher Salaries Commission. In public service, you'll recall there was a Higher Salaries Commission which determined salaries of permanent secretaries as well as other bodies funded by government, and that commission was meant to ensure that there is harmony in the salary structure in those ranks, as well as there is consideration given to relativity, meaning the difference between the boss's salary and people down below, or the subordinates. Those were factors which couldn't or were not considered because the Higher Salaries Commission, which had depth of information and knowledge about salary structure in public service, got abolished. And it was a pity. I regret that happened. And People's Alliance Party will bring the Higher Salaries Commission back.
So the 150,000 plus current salary level for PS, should that come down?
I mean, I'm not able to make a judgment on that, because really it depends on a proper study of the market conditions and also relativity within the public service. And that's what the Higher Salaries Commission was meant to do, to compare and watch the salaries of top levels in public service in comparison with what the rest of the public service got. Because the public service is like a family. I mean, you are not implementing work and performing your roles in isolation. Everybody else works for you. And you need to be conscious of the fact that bulk of the work gets done by your subordinates. You are only taking the risk by virtue of management and overall discharging of that role. But those people down there, the public servants performing ordinary roles, they do bulk of the work. So that has to be considered as well.
Parmesh, thank you very much. We'll take a short break and return after this.
Thank you.
Welcome back, Parmesh Chand. Let's continue the discussion. You've been looking at Fijian politics from far away, and now that you are politically inclined towards the People's Alliance Party, let me have your thoughts on this. What type of individuals do not belong in Fiji's political scene?
Yeah, I personally, I should not pass a judgment on that, because I myself am aspiring to be a politician. It is for the people to determine what type of people they would like. Obviously, the virtues of impartiality, credibility, and trust and loyalty and service, all this come into the picture as to what your background is. But it's for the people of Fiji to determine what type of politicians they require. They need the best of people. They need because they end up putting their trust and confidence in the person they vote for 4 years at least. So obviously they would be looking for people who can stand up for them, people they look up to, people who have been truthful, honest, and people who have interest of public at heart. So. And I would like to espouse that values continuously when I go into Parliament.
On that note, the current comments by the Attorney General in regards to Bhajan Singh in Fiji, it has created a lot of backlash for the party on social media. As a staunch Hindu, when you heard those comments, what came to your mind?
Well, personally, I was devastated by those comments, because those comments are outright derogatory and condescending. It was very insensitive, and no amount of apologies will take the hate away from the group of people he has had, because Bhajanias are people who have a special role in our culture and tradition, and we are proud of their skills, because they carry many of those skills handed down from generation to generation. Not everybody can sing bhajans. And it has religious significance. They provide comfort during mourning periods, during bereavement. They perform a role in religious functions, and many of them, whilst it is a skill, they come and provide those skills freely. They come and sing for you. They don't charge us money. Occasionally there are professional singers who charge fees. So I was very saddened with those comments and remain saddened. I'm also very surprised that none of the other people within Fiji Fest party condemned those comments, because those comments need to be condemned by everybody if we are promoting harmony under the ambit of the constitution they themselves imposed on us. So really, I recall people like Viam Pillai invited the Attorney General to come and open bhajan festivals and ceremonies in their constituency in Ba. And I'm just wondering what the voters would be thinking, because here's a man who went and got all the accolades for opening those events, and then comes and passes a derogatory comment about those people who he photographed himself with. So it's downright unacceptable.
So the AG ought to apologize.
To me, no amount of apologies will take the head away, because really it is, he ought to have realized by virtue of him being in these functions before. So really, why did he pass those comments? I don't know. Only he can answer it. But to the people out there, they should judge what kind of people they are voting in the coming elections.
Okay, let's get some individual thoughts from you. I know the People's Alliance Party manifesto is out, but how do you assess the Fiji's education system? You being very career-oriented and educated, how do you see the education system in Fiji currently?
Yeah, it's a pity. The Fijian education system was looked up by many Pacific Islanders as well as internationally. It is something which is turning into more and more of a mess, because every minister has come and brought in their own set of policies and programs without having a long-term view of education in Fiji. The government itself has refused to look at a broader review of the education system. They did somewhat of a review, and it remained a hush-hush review. We hardly heard about it. The manner in which the ministers and the current minister in particular goes to committee-run schools, it's unacceptable, because the people who have been behind those schools need to be recognized, because 95% of schools in Fiji are run or are run by the community, or were run by the community. They invested in it, and they need to come at the forefront. I myself recall at a function I was where the Minister of Education came as a chief guest, and I was told by his staff where to sit. I'm a trustee of that school, and I was surprised them instructing me where to sit, because I'm the host of the minister and I should be telling where they should sit. So I was shocked at the type of reception they give to local people, those who give their time in free, in kind, to run those schools. And also I'm not happy the way the teachers are being treated with contracts and with performance assessments, because how can you be given a short-term contract being a teacher? Because that's the only profession you have. You need to invest in sufficient training to be able to ensure that he or she remains a good teacher for life. And that's not happening in the current system. I'm also, I was never a party to this retirement at age 55. And in the education system, if anybody knows about the education, particularly in the Fiji First government, it takes years to become a head of a discipline, or head of maths, or head of English. And by the time they reach that stage, it's good. They're already reaching the age of 50 or 52, 53. And within one year after that, you are sent home based on compulsory retirement. So all this investment, all these sacrifices teachers make, as soon as they reach the pinnacle of their career, they are being asked to retire. And I must also say, I mean, living in a rural community, teachers play a very important role in communities. They are looked up to, and they need to be able to be promoted to play a more role in that, because given the NCDs, the non-communicable diseases rampaging our country, teachers in collaboration with health professionals can reach out to the masses of people out in the communities and teach them the goodness of good nutrition, health and physical exercises, and that will help the health system in this country.
Being a newcomer in politics, have you set a personal target, how many votes you are looking at?
Well, the more the merrier, and obviously my number is 341, and I am marketing it every day with the view to amass as much votes as possible to make my party win and to be the government, because there's no other way. There's the masses we are appealing to vote for us, and I'm sure I'll get there. And so will my colleagues, and I don't want to put a number, but the more the merrier, and the more support I get, the more I'm able to contribute to the people of Fiji.
If Siti Veni Rabuka gets to form a government, and if you are offered a ministerial position, what would you want?
Well, that's the prerogative of the Prime Minister of the day. I am going into politics and into Parliament, and thereafter possibly into government. I leave it to the leader of the party, who will become the Prime Minister. And it's the Prime Minister's team to choose the best team with diverse skills to deliver the roles and functions enshrined in the manifesto. And I'm sure he'll consider it fairly and squarely.
Finally, Parmesh, what's your message to Fijian voters?
Well, we are almost now in the final stages of campaigning and voting, actually starting from next week, the 5th of December being pre-polling voting, going up to 9th of December, and thereafter soon thereafter will be a blackout period, and then the proper voting on the 14th of December. My advice to the people of Fiji is to come out and listen to various candidates. They are all people of good credentials. At the end of the day, your vote is very important, and your vote is important to each and every candidate. But obviously, not everybody can go into Parliament. There's only 55 seats. My advice to the people of Fiji is to choose the best, those people with credentials and with skills and with experiences to be able to deliver your expectations. I leave it to that, and I wish all my colleague candidates all the best, including those in opposition, because we are all fighting for the same market. And the best will get the votes to get there and make up the 55.
Parmesh Chand, thank you very much for speaking with us today.
Thank you, Anish. It was a pleasure to be on your program.
Thank you very much. Join me again soon when another candidate from another party will be sitting down with me and discussing politics. Thank you very much.